Hey, Jody here. July 4th is coming in hot. If you'll hang around to the end of the video, I've got a July 4th special offer for you. Let's get to it. I'm TIG welding some cold rolled steel today. This is a little project kit from Precision Tube Laser called a Mini Tube Hurricane. A little alcohol and some Scotch-Brite. It's pretty clean, but it's got a little bit of rust specks on it. So I thought I'd take it apart, clean it up, put it back together, start off on the right foot. Put a rubber band around there just to kind of hold it in place while I get a few tacks on there. And first off, I'm just going to put single tacks on all the little corners here. It's tab and slot design. You can't really move much. I could lock it down to that fixture table there with some clamps, but no need to. And there goes the rubber band. Now I clean this up really nice. I'm trying to get nice, small, clean tack welds on it. I'm keeping the post flow over it. Each time I'd make a tack weld, you can't tell it because I've got it sped up so much. But some of the real keys to TIG welding, to making good TIG welds: clean metal, clean filler wire, clean sharp electrode, and good gas shielding. And good gas shielding means different things on different metals. On aluminum, it means something entirely different than on stainless steel, Inconel, or something like that. Clean metal also means something different depending on the metal welded. Hot rolled steel, it means removing the mill scale. Period. You can't make a decent TIG weld over hot rolled mill scale. Let me show you what happens here. And actually this turned out a lot better than I have seen it. You can see the puddle kind of quivering there a little bit. It's wanting to spit and sputter and get some porosity in it, but you know, it's just very hard to make a decent looking TIG weld over hot rolled mill scale. If you clean it off, a whole lot better. Another problem is a long arc. Probably the problem when people are learning to weld is holding too long an arc. I've set the machine relatively low here. It's hot enough to make a puddle and to weld, but if I use too long an arc, it won't even carry a puddle. That's the difference right there. Metal just blobs in there, makes a cold weld, but if I tighten the arc back up, things get better immediately. Also, welding with a clean electrode is super important. Here's an example of welding with a crapped up electrode. It's just not going to do well. The arc is not focused. There's going to be all kinds of metal vaporizing and giving you a brown, hazy tint here and there. So keep a sharp electrode, clean your metal, and have adequate shielding. And TIG welding will be a whole lot more fun. Okay, let's get back to the project here. I've welded a few of these joints. There's so many of them to weld, I'm not going to show every single one of them. So I welded a few of them just to kind of get my hand back in it. And here we go. Now, notice I'm coming not super far out of that puddle with the hot tip of the filler wire. I'm using a 0.31 diameter filler for this today. And I'm trying to keep it fairly close, but I've got a little bit of an edge because I'm using a number 10 cup. This is called a Jazzy 10 cup. It is on the store now. It's working great for jobs like this where you need a little bit of extra stick out, a little bit of extra gas coverage, but you don't want to use a whole lot of gas. It's a good choice. I'm trying to follow my own advice here. Keep a nice tight arc, not too much electrode angle. Keep the hot tip of the rod shielded. So things are going pretty well here. A couple of reasons I did this little video today. One, they sent me this thing when I ordered the bigger Tube Hurricane project. And two, I was heading out on vacation and trying to put a video together so I could get a little bit ahead and have some content to show. But I think it makes a good lesson. It's more fun to do and it's more fun to watch than just welding some coupons together. Nothing wrong with that. There's always something to learn no matter how big or how small the piece is, as long as you dig into it. Notice I'm tapering off slowly to not leave a crater eye. That's important on almost all TIG welding. Just depends on the process. You know, there's all kinds of methods. There's bump welding for anodized tubing where you don't let off slowly at all. You're on and off all the time. But for something like this, in stainless steel and Inconel and a lot of other alloys, you want to taper off slow. Here's a little close-up of the way that I feed filler wire. This is the way I do it most of the time. Not always. It depends on what position I'm in. But I'm just gripping it between my first two fingers and feeding it a little bit at a time, pinching it between my thumb and palm alternately. Now, feeding wire is the last thing to come, it seems like, when you're learning to TIG weld. That's what slows you down. So it's good to practice it, get up to speed with it. One of the reasons these welds are looking so colorful is the cup. The other reason is this filler wire. I was lucky enough to get a hold of a whole bunch of aerospace filler wire over 20 years ago. This is some Hastelloy C276. It's in the 031 diameter, and that's what I wanted for this project, so I thought I'd experiment with it. It's not the best idea to weld steel with a nickel alloy like this, and there's no need for it. Really expensive stuff. But again, I have a bunch of it, and I've had it for over 20 years and don't seem to have any need for it, so I'm using a little here for this project. It flows pretty good, I'll say that. It's used sometimes for cladding carbon steel for corrosion resistance, but it's just not recommended necessarily for joining it together for structural applications. Again, tapering off nice and slow every time I end the bead. I think I'll show one more of these. You can see I put that cube on there that I made several videos ago just as a weight. Sometimes you put something on a block and it's not even, it starts teeter-tottering and it sets up a bunch of vibration, and hard to make a good looking weld like that. So sometimes just a weight is all it takes. Again, I could lock it down with some clamps, but no need to. All right, we'll wrap up these short little welds. And then next up are these little round to the flat at the intersections. And for these, you know, these type of round joints, you kind of have to change your torch angle as you go. And so for some of these, not particularly this one, but for some of them, I did a little pedal pulsing, because that seems to help when you're changing your torch angle. It gives you an opportunity to back off the heat, twist your wrist around a little bit, then pulse the pedal. Add filler wire on the high amperage pulse, and then back off again and do that same thing again and again. And you know, hopefully if you do it right, it sort of creates a stack of dimes look, an even ripple situation. And you don't let off the pedal necessarily a whole lot. You know, just maybe 50%, 30%, just depends on the application. And I'm not real good at it, by the way, so I'm practicing here. So there's some areas that I couldn't reach, so I'm going to reposition the whole piece. You know, one of the handiest things you can have in a welding shop is just a little drill press vise for holding small parts like this. And this is going to show sort of, you know, how important it is to be able to have some good electrode extension. I've got it over 3/4 of an inch there, and I think I'm using maybe 25 CFH here, and it's going to let me stick that electrode out way far and join the two sides without losing shielding gas. And now I could use a much smaller cup, one of those long neck cups or something, or like a number 4, and get in there with not much electrode extension, but I wouldn't be able to see what I was doing very well, and also would not have very good gas shielding. So for these type situations, I just prefer to use something like this. This is a number 10. Again, it's a Jazzy 10. It's on the Weldmonger store, and it works great. It kind of fills that gap between a number 8 gas lens, which is what I kind of use normally. Fills the gap between that and a number 12. It doesn't require all that much more gas than a number 8, and it's working great. So anyway, back to these butt welds here on the outside. We'll get an arc shot of that in just a minute. And while I'm welding this, I'm actually thinking about different ways to do this, to learn more, actually to use this as a teaching tool. And I'm thinking this would be a really good exercise in welding this inside a chamber, an argon chamber, you know, so that the whole inside would be purged, and just cut it open when I'm done and see what the inside looks like as opposed to this one. I don't know. That sounds like a lot of work, but it would be interesting. I'm using quite a bit of electrode angle here. It's because I really don't want to penetrate like a crazy amount, because all I'm going to do is draw in oxides from the backside, and it's just going to look bad. Well, I've welded several of these butt joints here, and I've camped out on this thing for quite a while without letting it rest any, and it's getting quite hot. So now I'm throwing on a TIG finger here so I can keep going and prop right next to the weld without jumping through hoops and putting up wooden blocks and stuff like that to prop with. Here's another one. I think the 031 wire is just about right for this project because it's really pretty small. I think the wall thickness is probably about 050, something like that. I think I was actually set on 50 amps for these joints, but not quite full pedal. Again, taper off nice and slow to avoid leaving a crater hole. And if you're closing something like this up completely, that last weld might blow out. So sometimes it's good to leave the last weld for an area that you can fix easily, or drill a weep hole, a vent hole in it to prevent that from happening. Well, let's talk about the deal I mentioned at the beginning of the video. I've got too many 2018 DVD sets on the shelf. I need to clear some of them out and get ready for next year. So I'm offering a deal here. It's a 4-disc set, 2018, all the YouTube videos I did in 2018 on a 4-disc set, all nice and indexed here, so you don't have to just hit play and wonder where something is. But the deal is I'm offering this along with a TIG finger and a TIG finger XL, all for less than the original price of the DVD set by itself. Made in USA, out of products that are sourced in the USA, made by friends and family. It's not a Chinese knockoff. Beware of that, by the way. If this is something that interests you, if you think it would help you up your game in TIG welding, click the link in the description of this video, or there should be one right here. And thanks for your support. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time. Have a good 4th. Spend some time with your family. Be safe.